Do you appreciate freedom? If so, this is for you. So what is democratic capitalism? Well, democratic capitalism is an economy that is based predominantly on free markets and economic incentives. It is also based on a democratic polity. You could consider that as a democratic constitution or system of governance, and a classical liberal moral cultural system which encourages pluralism. So an economy based predominantly on free markets and economic incentives, that means that the market is predominantly driven by people who are incentivized to do things that are good for themselves and the economy as a whole. A democratic polity is needed because at its core, democratic capitalism focuses on the rights of people to have private property. If you don't have private property rights and you don't have people having their own individual rights, then the system cannot exist. Democratic capitalism can only exist when people have private property rights and the ability to have their own stuff, run their own businesses, whatever. And therefore, democratic capitalism requires a democratic system of governance. A classical liberal moral cultural system, similar idea. Classical liberalism focuses on the individual, freedoms of the individual, and also plurality. So democratic capitalists want people of all skill levels, all backgrounds, all socio-cultural, heritages, whatever. It doesn't exclude anybody. Everybody's allowed in. If you can be productive in some way or another, if you believe that your own property rights are just as important as anyone else's, and you want to work in this mutually beneficial cooperative system, then you're invited. Democratic capitalism really is for everybody. Now, do some people benefit more? Yes. Do some people benefit less? Yes. But that's going to be the case in any system, anywhere in the entire world. Nowhere has a system ever existed where everybody was equally in a good place, and at the same time, where everybody agreed that it was the best thing. It's never going to happen. You're never going to have 100% of people agreeing that this is great and everybody's on the same level playing field. That's just never going to exist. But we can do our best to give everybody the opportunity to achieve the most that they can, and democratic capitalism offers that opportunity. In a democratic capitalist state, we believe in private property rights, so you should be able to buy stuff, hold on to it, have your own money, whatever. All the stuff you own is your private property. I can't come knock your door down and take it. The government can't come knock your door down and take it. It's yours. If you want to sell it, great. If not, you keep it. Economic incentives. Economic incentives are, for example, if I write a training program for someone and it sucks, nobody's going to buy it. So I am incentivized to provide a higher quality product. Now, if I provide a higher quality product and it's too expensive, nobody's going to buy it then. So I am incentivized to both create a high quality product and sell it at a price that people can agree it's worth. That way, we exchange. You give me money, which I need. I give you a training program, which you need. We mutually benefit, and everybody's good. That happens because of the economic incentives, which are inherently included in a democratic capitalist system. We also believe in the natural ability of market forces and free individuals to make market decisions, not the bureaucratic state, not the government. Democratic capitalism and free market economies operate based on the sum total of a bunch of individuals making all these decisions throughout their day and throughout over time, which culminates into the economic prosperity that we see today here in our country and in other nations around the world. I'll get into this more later, but this is, I think, the most important part of the capitalist versus socialist communist viewpoint, free market versus planned economy debate. Centrally planned economies, such as socialist economies and communist economies, can never operate as efficiently or as effectively and to the benefit of everybody as much as a democratic capitalist system can. So what do free markets encourage? Well, first of all, they encourage innovation. The incentive for profit leads those with capital to take risks and invest in innovation in hopes of creating a useful thing which earns them profits in the future. Electric cars only exist because someone with money said, I'm going to take a risk, I'm going to invest in this technology, try to innovate because I think I can provide something that people are going to want to buy and which is also good for the world as a whole. Across the board, innovations have generally been driven by the incentive to make profit. In a free market economy, everybody involved in the economy, everybody in the country, is allowed to seek to innovate in whatever way they believe they can. This can be on a low level, this can be on a high level. But the profit incentive drives innovation because it gives people a reason to risk the resources they have on a project which can lead to something which is better than which currently exists now. Free markets encourage high quality work. In a system which is driven by competition, those with the best quality products or services at the lowest prices will earn the most business. As such, it is incentivized for businesses to provide the best quality products or services they can within the constraints of their financial situation. Say you're providing something that people can't afford. Well, you can offer a lower quality product, but do it at a lower price so they can afford it. Or you can provide a higher quality product, charge a higher price. Or if you're very innovative, you can provide a better quality product at a lower price as well. This is driven by the market. Democratic capitalism requires mutually beneficial agreements. Like I mentioned before, when you buy an iPhone, you're making the decision that you're better off with the iPhone than you are with the money that it took to buy it. Conversely, the company that is selling you the iPhone is better off taking the money than holding onto the iPhone. You have money that they want, they have an iPhone you want. You exchange, both of you are receiving something that each of you feel is of value, and you come away better off than you were before. These exchanges in a free market economy are mutually beneficial. They are not a zero-sum game. They do not leave one person taking from another. And this is one of the very important things you need to watch out for when you listen to a socialist or a communist talk about the free market. They will talk about it in a oppressor versus oppressed narrative. They will talk about they're taking from you. Apple is taking your money. Chevron is taking your money. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are plenty ways that these companies can act in a more moral way, in a way that is fair to their workers or to the people. But at the end of the day, it is my choice whether or not to buy this microphone, to buy this shirt. You should buy one too, shop.athletex.us. To buy this computer, that's my decision. Nobody's forcing me to do that. I'm not being oppressed by Apple when I buy their computer. My life is being enriched because I have this iPhone, this microphone, this computer, I can make this video. You see how it works? Democratic capitalism ensures freedom. This is another thing. Oftentimes people espousing ideas of socialism will say that capitalism is an inherently non-free system, when in fact that couldn't be farther from the truth. Yes, are there people who corrupt the system and they may make legislation which limits freedom, or maybe they make backroom dealings with politicians which have in some way, I can't think of it right now, but in some way limit your freedom? Maybe. But we need to sniff that stuff out and deal with it, not throw the baby out with the bathwater and get rid of this amazing system that we do currently have. We need to fix the problems it has, not overthrow it completely. And democratic capitalism allows you the freedom to work where you want to work, or at least apply to work where you want to work, to leave your job if you feel you're not getting paid enough, to start a business if you want to sell a product if you want to become educated if you want to. These are all allowed because we're in a free market system. And the free market system intertwines with our society and our societal values and our government values and how we think we should be run as a society as a whole. Democratic capitalism ensures that accountability is present. Because of the power of the mighty dollar, the behavior of consumers can hold companies accountable for their actions. In recent times, people who have been accused of racism, sexual assault, or otherwise immoral and unethical behaviors have been fired, and companies have been boycotted in instances where consumers felt that these companies were supporting this questionable behavior. As consumers, we have the freedom to choose who we spend money with or otherwise do business with. If you do not agree with the way that a company treats its employees, such as in the case of Amazon overworking and underpaying their warehouse staff, you and your peers can make the decision on an individual or collective basis as to whether or not you spend your money with a given organization. I guarantee that a bunch of people who are beating the drum of Amazon treats their employees so terribly has in the past year bought from them at some point, therefore supporting the way that they treat their employees. If in fact people actually gave as much of a shit as they claim to, they could rally together, just like they're rallying together to say, Democratic Socialists of America, we want to take away private property rights. Well, why don't you just say, look, we're going to collectively get as many people to cancel their Prime subscription as possible, and create an open letter which tells Amazon, unless you pay your employees more and treat them better, we're not going to shop with you. That'll work. If you do that, I guarantee Amazon employees will get paid more. You get the stuff you want from Amazon. You'll get it with your 2-day shipping when you buy your Prime subscription again, and everybody will be happy. You can use the market to your advantage if you don't agree with how a company or an organization is operating. The mighty dollar holds the ultimate power in a free market economy. And if you collectively decide that you don't agree with how a company is running, you can boycott them. You can get together and say, we're not going to use your services until you do X, Y, or Z. And between you and the company, you can come to an agreement or not. Maybe the company doesn't care and they think they can get on without you. Fine. Take your business elsewhere. Go support a local business. But you have the freedom to do that in this economy. We can sniff out and get rid of a lot of the corruption, a lot of the poor treatment of employees, all this stuff using the free market itself. Now, the alternative to a democratic capitalist state would be a planned economy, such as socialism or communism. Socialism tends to lead into communism. That's generally the ultimate goal. And if anybody tells you different, then I would suggest you go listen to some socialist podcasts or read some socialist essays, because despite what the socialist apologists might say, the people who are true socialists, they say they want to get rid of private property. They want to give the means of production, exchange, distribution, all that stuff to the state, and ultimately they want communism. That's the end goal. So why do planned economies not work? Well, let's talk about it. In socialism and communism, the means of production, distribution, and exchange are run by the state. Oftentimes, this is obfuscated with words such as socially owned or publicly owned, but make no mistake, these words mean one thing. They translate to mean the state or the government. Publicly owned means the state owns it. Socially owned means the state owns it. They might say, oh, well, there's worker cooperatives, or there are, people who get together to vote on how to use it, but ultimately it's in the hands of the state. These systems do not value or recognize private property or the profit incentive. They disregard it completely, and they claim that profit is evil. Profit is the result of oppression. But if you think back a couple minutes ago to when we talked about the iPhone, Apple profiting off the iPhone is not them oppressing you. The profit motive that they had to make the phone is why you have a nice phone that can take your fun pictures, surf the web, and do all the things it does, because like we also talked about, the free market drives innovation. So because there's the profit incentive, you get innovation, you get mutually beneficial exchanges, all this stuff. But socialists vilify these ideals. They think they're evil, which is completely beyond my conception of how they can come to that conclusion, unless they're just ignorant or angry at the world, and so they look at the world through this perspective of everybody's oppressing them, which is probably the case in some of these instances. But I digress. Because these systems do not value the profit incentive, they limit or eliminate the ability of the individual to profit from their labors. What you produce goes to the public, and in return, you get only what you need. Or in some cases, like in Soviet Russia or Maoist China, you get less than what you need. No matter what you do, you are unable to ascend to a higher standard of living, as in these economies, everybody is supposed to be on a level playing field. Sound familiar? And being wealthy is vilified as greedy and oppressive. You're not allowed to ascend to a higher economic status in these planned socialist economies. It's not allowed. If you ascend above someone else, you must be oppressive. When you take away the ability for free individuals to make countless individual decisions in the free market, these decisions and their associated activities must be subsumed by the government. One example is farming. In a free economy, farmers who are motivated by profit will ensure that they raise the best crops possible that are in highest demand, produce them in an economically efficient manner, and sell them at prices which are agreeable for both the producer and the consumer. They manage acquiring materials, planting, raising the crops, collecting and processing the crops, transporting them, selling them, and maintaining the land in a way which ensures their best shot at future success. These decisions and actions, multiplied countless times over the vast numbers of other farms and other industries, amount to the economy as a whole. And having self-interested parties in charge of these individual situations ensure that, for the most part, products and services we need are produced well and sold at prices that we can all generally agree upon. In a planned economy where private property does not exist, and the state runs production, distribution, and exchange, all of these innumerable decisions must be made by the state. Not only must the state manage the activities of one farm, but they must do so for all farms, and on top of that, all industries. It is simply impossible for a centrally run bureaucratic institution to manage the production, distribution, and exchange of important goods and services in a manner which is more effective than the free market. Unless you have an equal number of farmers, mechanics, engineers, whatever, across these vast industries, unless you have an equal number of those people in the bureaucratic organization that is supposed to run the production, distribution, and exchange of these goods and services, then you have quite a tough task on your hand of how you expect to manage all these things in a way which can meet or exceed the efficiencies and abilities of the free market. Beyond that, when you put this stuff, these industries, in the hands of the state, you take away the profit motive. Now the people who are doing these jobs are not motivated by profit because there is no profit to be made. Do you think they're going to work as hard? Do you think they're going to try as hard to make sure that the crops are produced at the right time or in the right way? If you look at history, if you look at economic history, when these industries have been taken over by the state, the quality reduces, the availability reduces, and in some terrible cases, tens of millions of people have died. This is a fact. If you overlook these facts, then you're being disingenuous. You're not looking at history in an accurate manner. Now, unfortunately, people are looking to end democratic capitalism, eliminate free markets, and take away private property rights. Despite claims to the contrary, democratic socialists want to eliminate private property and return them and our means of production to the state. Recently, I was listening to a podcast, and Ramson Cannon, who's the education coordinator for the Chicago Democratic Socialists of America chapter, he was asked what his views for socialism were. Now, as education coordinator, I would imagine this person is sort of like a propagandist. I don't mean that totally negatively. I'm just saying these are the people who are telling everybody else in the organization what to believe, what direction they're trying to go, and they really create the vision for the organization. So if this person is espousing certain ideas, you can only assume that these ideas are trickling down to the rest of the organization, and that laterally or above them, these ideas exist. He was asked what his view for socialism was, referring to here in America. His response included the following: state ownership of the means of production. And as he elaborated, this included, quote, utilities, mentioned like the electrical grid, food production, agriculture, agricultural production, housing, insurance, and, quote, all the staples. So all the important stuff, their goal is to put that under the state. If you don't believe me, go listen to it. Midwest Socialist Podcast, most recent episode. I think it was produced August 22nd. Let us make no mistake, and let us not mince any words. Democratic socialists are not diet socialists. They are not just for socialist institutions such as, single-payer health care or Social Security. Okay, that is not what they're for. They use words in their articles, in their podcasts, like radicalism, like revolutionaryism, like having a revolution, overthrowing the system that we're in, not just tweaking things to make it better for people, which I agree we should do. Not passing legislation which helps the groups of people that need to be helped in ways that are truly effective in helping them, not just, something that sounds cute and fuzzy but really doesn't do shit for them. They want to overthrow the whole system. The organizations and their organizational leaders want to get rid of private property rights and transfer ownership of our most important productive industries to the state. When this exact process happened in Maoist China and Soviet Russia, tens of millions of people died of starvation and famine. Why? Because, like I stated earlier, it is impossible for a centrally run bureaucratic organization to control vast numbers of various economic units as well as profit-driven free agents can do in a predominantly free market. This guy is also quoted as saying that in order to transition from capitalism to, quote, full-blown communism, he said that in response to violence being brought up as one of the ways in which the system can be overthrown, he said, quote, "If we're being realistic about it, it is probably inevitable." So violence is likely inevitable if they are to be successful in overthrowing our system and turning us into a socialist society. Those are their words, not mine. So, wrapping this up, does the market need to be totally free? Do we need complete laissez-faire capitalism with zero regulation? Well, no. Obviously, we need some regulation. We need to protect the environment. There are idiots out there who will pollute the environment if they can because they think it's easy, because they're lazy. We need strong anti-corruption legislation so that politicians and corporations are not in bed with each other. We could use electoral reform. We could use reforms related to how campaigns are funded. All of these things can contribute to our free market economy, our democratic capitalist system, operating in a way which is better for everybody. If, like it is stated by some, that, say, a third of Amazon's employees are on food stamps. If Amazon can't pay their employees enough to not be on food stamps, then Amazon should pay the government for those food stamps. That might be something we could do. I'm not saying that we necessarily should or shouldn't, but that's a possibility, right? There are ways that we can legislate in our current system, which makes the system better for everybody. But we don't have to get rid of the system completely. And if we do, we're going to be screwed. That's not the direction to go. We can improve the system without overthrowing it. We need systems and programs which help poor people generate wealth in an incentivized manner. Some populations can benefit from true welfare, and there should be some available for those that really need it. For example, the elderly who no longer are in a position to work because, they're old and they've put in their time and they shouldn't have to. Or the disabled. If people are disabled and they're unable to work in a normal job, there need to be things that help them, okay? Let's make no bones about it. But for those who are able to work, we need welfare systems which incentivize them to pull themselves out of poverty. Simply throwing money at people is not the way to solve the problem. Now, in the short term, should we do that? Of course. If somebody doesn't have any money and they don't have a job, they're trying to get a job, but they don't have one yet, they got kids to feed, they got themselves to feed, they have rent to pay, sure. Should there be money available for those people in short-term situations? Of course there should. But should the system that is provided for them incentivize them to not get a job like our current system does? Should the system incentivize single-parent households instead of two-parent households? For kids to be raised where there's only one parent available? No. The welfare systems in our country should incentivize people to do things like getting a job, even if it's a part-time job. If you're on welfare, there should be some incentive for you to be better off at the end of the day with a part-time job and some welfare than only welfare. And then maybe at a certain point, if your kids grow up or, your condition improves or whatever, that then it incentivizes you to get a full-time job or to start a little business or whatever it is, but something where it's encouraging you to do better for yourself. Not only is this going to help people's financial situations, not only is it going to help our country as a whole spend less or at least waste less money and not just have people wasting away in a system that doesn't move them up in the world. We should have a system that incentivizes people to pull themselves out of poverty. If we do that, they'll feel better about themselves, they'll feel better about the world, they'll have better interactions with their kids, and if they feel better about themselves, they make more money, and they do it on their own, that's great for their mental health. Instead, we have a welfare system which keeps people down, ensures that they just stay, tied to the government, increases the power of the bureaucrats who are enabling that system, and it really, at the end of the day, does not holistically help the people who it is trying to help. We can achieve goals like having welfare systems which truly help people, not just keep them down, without getting rid of our democratic capitalist system. We can do things like eliminate corruption in business between business and politicians without overthrowing our democratic capitalist system. We can protect the environment. We can do all kinds of things within our current system without overthrowing it, without getting rid of it. And it is on us as people to educate ourselves about it, to understand on a basic level how the economy works, how the economy intertwines with our society as a whole, how these ideals get implemented into the world, and how those who are espousing different ideas like socialism do not value the same things that we do. They do not value private property rights, for you to have the freedom to have your own stuff, for you to be incentivized by profits, to do a good job at work. We need to fight these concepts. We need to fight these ideas. And I don't mean you need to go out and picket and say all socialists are dumb. No, you need to engage people who have different ideas than you. You need to learn from them. Learn about how they've come to the conclusions that they've come to. What are the premises which drive them toward those conclusions? Try to understand that, because if you come to understand that, you can then pick it apart, show it to them in a different light, and maybe get them to think that maybe our system isn't as bad as I thought. Maybe I don't need to be so pessimistic. You can help educate those around you. And if we as freedom-loving people, as people who believe that the incentive for profit can be a good thing, that freedom in the market is a good thing, it's on us to spread the word about democratic capitalism and the system that we live in, and that we can maximize the efficiency of our system, make sure that our system helps people as a whole. We can do that, but it's on us. So educate yourself, spread the word, make arguments that are in good faith, try to understand your opponent, be civil when you talk to people about this stuff, and above all, lead by example. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you learned something. If you didn't learn anything, I hope that at least it got you thinking on how you can contribute to improving our current system without overthrowing it completely. My name is Cody Bidlow. This is ATHLETE.X. Thanks for watching.